What's up, everybody? We are back. We are the NFL experts. I am Mark D, and I am always joined by my guy, Wayne G. What's up, man? How was your time off?
Not too much. A couple of weeks off was nice. I went to Connecticut. I was at the Travelers Championship the same day that Cameron Young shot a 59. I did not see it, but I heard the roar from the crowd on the 18th hole when I was on the first hole.
Very nice. Sounds like your kind of weekend, man.
Yeah, a good golf weekend. Then we played golf, and then we played golf again last week. And now we're playing golf again tomorrow. I feel like I'm getting sick of golf, believe it or not.
I don't see that happening, Wayne.
Well, especially since I just got a PS5 for my birthday. I turned 45 over.
Yes, happy
last
belated
weekend.
birthday. I know I wished you happy birthday last time, but happy birthday again.
Yeah, you did, thank you. So my wife bought me a PS5, and she got me a Grand Theft Auto 5 to go with it. Now, I've already beaten Grand Theft Auto 5 when I had the PS4 version, but I was like, all right, I'll play it again. And what do you think is the number one thing consuming my time right now? It's not stealing cars, shooting people, or robbing stores. I'm playing golf at the golf course in San Andreas.
Come on, man. You got to go steal a plane, jump out of it, shoot as you're coming down. Come on.
Yeah, I just want to get to the golf course faster.
All right. All right, everybody out there. If you like what you hear tonight, any comments or any of our expertise that you may have liked or picked up, give us a follow or send us a comment or a question. Check us out on all our social media. We are NFL Experts Pod. That's plural. On Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. And if you want to send us an email for a topic for the show, we're at NFLExpertsPod@gmail.com. Give us a shout. We love the interaction.
Absolutely. Lots of different ways to find us and interact with us. And speaking of interaction, I hate to keep steering us off a cliff here, but I don't know what's going on with my camera, but I feel like it's not making me look so fat today. I feel like skinnier today. I'm loving my camera tonight.
All right. Everything's coming up Wayno tonight.
That's right. Everything's coming up for me. And so speaking of things coming up for players, obviously we've got a lot to get to today. We've got some things. We're going to kick things off here, though, with players in the NFL that have the most to prove in 2024. Now, there's a lot of guys who've signed new contracts. There's some rookies coming in, a lot of different situations for a lot of different players. So let's kick it off with you. I know you come up with these topics, so I'd like to start with you. Like, who's a player that you think has a lot to prove in this coming season?
Well, Wayne, when I came up with this topic, and then afterwards, when I do these topics, I do my research, and I ended up coming up with 5 different quarterbacks. I wasn't totally sure how many players you have down, but mine were all quarterbacks. I just feel like it's a quarterback-driven league, so it's like the most thing that I think about when I watch football. So my first one is, who it's going to be, Aaron Rodgers. I think he's got a lot to prove. He only played 4 snaps last year. There's high expectation there. He needs to start gelling with that offense if they're going to go anywhere, if he's going to bring the Super Bowl to New York, like he says. Okay, my second one would be Deshaun Watson. He really hasn't shown anything since he's been in Cleveland. He's got all this guaranteed money, and he really hasn't shown anything. He's been injured a lot, and he's healthy now. So I expect him to go out there, and if he's healthy, he's got a lot to prove. Third is another quarterback I'm not totally fond of. You know this, Wayne. Bryce Young. I feel like he has a lot to prove also, but I'll give him a pass because his team's really not that good. They're building still. The next one would be Daniel Jones. He's got a lot of high expectations in New York. He was hurt last year, and they just signed Drew Lock, so he's kind of biting at his toes. He's so he's got a lot to prove. My last guy, not sure if you know who it would be, Russell Wilson. Me, I'm the one guy that flipped on him and doesn't think he's a good quarterback anymore, which I kind of don't. And I think everybody thinks he's going to be so good in Pittsburgh because they have all this good team around him. But we had some pieces. We didn't have the team they do, but he couldn't really do it here either. Seattle wanted him gone. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to do there in Pittsburgh.
It's funny that you had these players. So you had 5 players. I have 7 players, so 12 between us. I only have one that's the same as yours, and that is Russell Wilson. I do have Russell Wilson as the guy, and because obviously, like you said, coming from Denver, the expectations. He had a good year last year, but how does he do now in Pittsburgh, which is a team that actually made the playoffs last year, despite Kenny Pickett being trash. So now they go and they get a quarterback who was good last year, who's shown to be good over the years. How does he do in Pittsburgh? Is he in the final years of his career and he just looks bad there as well? So I do agree with that pick. The others, we're looking at Rodgers. I feel like he's done. I don't think he has anything to prove. I feel like he goes out and goes 2-15. It's going to be the same result as if he goes 15-2. Everyone's kind of like, he's done though, right? Like, this is it. Like, nobody wants to see him keep playing. Daniel Jones, again, the idea is he's out in New York. There's nothing he can do, I think, to save himself. So for me, I had guys who I feel like they need to prove themselves. Russ needs to prove himself because he's, it's basically a 1-year deal. I know they talked about extending him and whatnot, but I have obviously a guy who just signed an extension, and that's Trevor Lawrence, right? He's gone, I think, 9-8 the last 2 years, made the playoffs 1 year, not the other. So he has to go out and show that he's worth $60 million a year or whatever it is, because they just gave it to him saying that we believe in you. So is that, should he have gotten that? Dak Prescott looking to get a new contract. He's got to prove himself, because otherwise he's out in Dallas. Probably will be anyways, even if he does prove himself. So that's something that I thought of. Joe Burrow, can he stay healthy? Right? I mean, is he going to get hurt again, or is this going to be a healthy year? We don't know. And then I had Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, same team as Russell Wilson, but he's a guy that 3 years in Chicago gets traded for nothing. He needs to prove that he's worth being an NFL quarterback, or he's going to be bagging groceries next year. And then I wanted to go against a couple guys who aren't quarterbacks. Bijan Robinson, last year I think he was misused by Atlanta. They've got a new head coach now, new offensive coordinator. Can they use him more efficiently and effectively? Also in Atlanta, Kyle Pitts. This guy was a top 5 draft pick at tight end. He was supposed to be the next coming, better than Gronk, better than Travis Kelce, and he hasn't done anything. So I think that this is a year for him because it's his last year of his rookie deal. So you're either going to be there next year or you won't. And yeah, that's my 7 people.
If I had to name, those are all very good. Dude, you really went deep down. I should have thought of more of, like you said, more to prove. I guess I just went with guys I know there, and they might be on their way out, and they really got to prove they want to stay there. So I guess we just had different ways of thinking on it. But if I had to add someone else besides quarterbacks like you did, I'd have to say Stephon Diggs. What do you think about that one, Wayne? I think, he's going to Houston. He caused all this drama to get out of Minnesota. He caused all this drama to get out of Buffalo. Now he's in Houston. I feel like he's one of those guys that, he's got a lot to prove in Houston.
I don't know if he has a lot to prove. Again, obviously personality-wise, but maybe that's just who he is. So it's not really something to prove. And I think that when he went to Buffalo, he had the best years of his career in Buffalo, better than when he was in Minnesota. So I think that there's nothing really for him to prove. He just has to keep doing what he's been doing. I think he just might be one of those guys who's just an asshole. And so, I don't think he's interested in proving anyone wrong.
I might agree with you on the asshole part, Wayne, definitely.
Now, as far as those are players that have something to prove, but listen, the football organizations are made up of a lot of different pieces. And how about some coaches who have something to prove? In other words, coaches who are on the hot seat this year, if they don't win, they're out. That's how I'm going to define hot seat when we go through these. You have to tell me a guy who is not going to be the coach next year if.
Okay, I had 5. I'm not sure how many you had, Wayne. I didn't want to name a bunch of them, but yes, I had narrowed it down to 5. I didn't really rank them. I just labeled them down. But if I had to rank them, I think number 1 for me would be Nick Sirianni. The Eagles have a really good team built to win now. I feel like they almost got rid of him last year for Belichick. They did that thing where they're like, well, we're going to talk to Nick and da-da-da. And then they decided to keep him. I feel like Belichick was in play there. And they decided against it maybe and decided to go with Nick. But I feel like he's on the hot seat. He's made some questionable decisions. And like I told you, they have a lot of talent. And for him to be making these dumb calls and the things that he does, I feel like he's on the hot seat.
I agree with you on Sirianni. And I think that's a great call. I didn't have him on my list. I only have 4 names. He probably would be my 5th because, like you said, he was up for debate last year. That's just this past offseason, several months ago. Was Belichick, and not even Belichick, even Vrabel was mentioned as possibly coming in as a head coach in Philadelphia. They have this great defense. They've drafted first round defensive players like every year, and yet their defense was just Swiss cheese last year. It gave up so much passing yards. You can blame that on Matt Patricia, but I think it's just an issue where Sirianni was already being considered to be replaced. So I agree with you. He's on the hot seat, but let me ask you, what does the Eagles' record have to be this year for him to be out?
What were they last year? They were 11-6, I think.
Were they 11-6?
Right, Wayne?
Okay. Could be, or 12-5,
so.
something like that.
I don't think it's really the record. I feel like it's how far they go into the playoffs. They were 1 and done last year. I forget, they played Tampa, right? Yeah, Tampa, and they lost in that first round. So I feel like they got to go farther than that. Like especially when he just took them to the Super Bowl. Come on.
So you're saying let's say they go 13-4. They go to the playoffs. They lose round 1. He's done. They bring in somebody else.
I think I might consider it. I think Belichick's still out there, man. Maybe they're still thinking about him.
All right. Who else you got?
And I said, okay, so my next guy would be, I'm not totally sure who you have on your list, but Sean McDermott. I feel like he's really underachieved for the Bills all these years that he's been there. He's supposed to be this defensive-minded head coach, and I don't feel like their defenses have really been that great. Granted, and plus that's another thing too, is they've lost a lot of pieces this offseason, so I'm kind of really sure like where their direction is going as a franchise. So he'd be my next on my list.
And I like that. Another guy who's not on my list. So it's great though, but he is a guy who also, we talked about Belichick maybe taking over for the Bills. So it's a team that, like you said, defensively has struggled. They have Josh Allen. A lot of crap for Josh Allen and his playoff performance, basically his playoff record, but playoff performance, we're talking about a guy who has like 26 touchdowns to 4 interceptions in the playoffs. Like every single year he gives his team a chance to win, and the defense blows it. So if he had a defensive-minded coach like a Belichick or somebody like Irv Vrabel, right, maybe those defenses hold those leads, and Josh Allen has a couple of Super Bowls by now, and we're not talking about Patrick Mahomes like we are. So I definitely think that that's a good call.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you agree. Okay, my next one would be, I'm not totally sure if this is another one on your list, but Matt Eberflus. I feel like he might have a little leeway, but in my eyes, I feel like he is on the hot seat. They did surround Caleb Williams with a ton of talent. So it's one of those things like if he doesn't succeed, it's like whose fault is it? Usually they're going to put the blame on the coach because they're not getting rid of Caleb Williams. So he'd be my next one.
I agree with that. He almost lost his job this past offseason, and I think there's a lot of Bears fans who wish that he did lose his job this past offseason.
Right.
So
right.
My question, though, is I think that when we say he's on the hot seat, I almost feel like he's definitely fired. Like there's nothing he can do this year where he comes back, no matter what. Short of winning the Super Bowl. You win the Super Bowl, you come back. But you've got a rookie quarterback. I think if he goes 8-9, which would actually be a successful campaign for a rookie quarterback, I think he loses his job. I think that they basically are saying this is your last year unless you win the Super Bowl.
Because why wouldn't they want to bring an offensive coach to help Caleb Williams develop? It makes sense.
It does. And I actually thought they were a great place for Belichick, especially if he was going to bring McDaniels, and you're going to give Caleb Williams to Josh McDaniels with those receivers and running backs. Like he'd have a field day.
Yeah, I think that guy's outcast for the NFL now.
Not as an OC.
Maybe. Okay, so my next one would be, once again, the Jets, Robert Saleh. I feel like he's another guy that's been there. He's underachieved. I think like a lot of his success is going to rely on how good Rodgers is. If Rodgers does well and they go to playoffs, I feel like he'll have some leeway and he'll be able to stay. But if they like you think like if they have his dumpster fire and have like 2 wins, he's going to get fired.
No, I think that's another good call. Again, another guy who I did not have on my list, but is a guy who I also agree is somebody who's on the hot seat. And, again, it doesn't matter how Aaron Rodgers does because he got that free pass last year. He's not going to get 2 free passes in a row. So if Aaron Rodgers doesn't win, most likely the Jets are going to be drafting in the top 5, top 10. They're going to get a quarterback, and they're going to bring in a new coach to coach that quarterback.
Yep, I totally agree with that, Wayne.
All right. Was that your 5? Is that? Oh, you're on mute.
My last one would be Mike McCarthy. Everybody's been talking about like he can't succeed in the playoffs. The whole thing with Dak. He wasn't extended this year. Jerry Jones is pulling the card that he's going to make him prove it this year. Maybe he thinks that if he does that, they're going to go on the Super Bowl finally after all these years. I don't really think so. I think they kind of got worse on the offseason. They really haven't made any moves to improve their team. They're going to have to pay Dak. Who knows what they're going to do about that? We're going to talk about that later. So there's a lot of question marks. So I feel like he's another one that's in the hot seat.
I agree. I had him on my list along with Eberflus. Those are two that I had with you. McCarthy has been disappointing the last few years, especially for the Cowboys, who've played so well and have so much talent. But like you said, Jerry Jones, before the preseason, basically said, we're all in on next year. Well, apparently he meant all in on tanking because he hasn't extended his coach, his quarterback, his star receiver. It seems like he's hell-bent on starting from scratch next year, right from the coaches all the way through the players. And so I think McCarthy's out unless he wins a Super Bowl. I think that would make Jerry happy, and then he would get an extension.
I think that's the only way he's keeping his job, Wayne. Only way.
Yeah, you can't make it to the NFC Championship and lose to the 49ers or the Packers. You just can't.
Nope. Definitely can't do that again for him. Nope.
So I did have a couple names on here who you didn't mention. One of them is going to be a real wild card, so I'll get to him last. But first is Doug Peterson with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They extended Trevor Lawrence. They gave him this $270 million contract. Again, they went 9-8 the last couple of years. You can't put that all on Lawrence. And what the Jaguars are saying by giving him a 5-year extension is we're not putting it on Lawrence. So he's here for the next 5 years. Peterson, you might not be. So you need to get over that 9-8 hump because we're sticking with Lawrence, obviously, for the long term.
Well, he's definitely got to get over that 9-8 hump. I agree with you on that. They didn't even make the playoffs last year, so he's definitely got to get back into the playoffs. And like you said, it's not all on Trevor Lawrence. But you're right. I agree with you on that. He's one I didn't even think about. But yeah, I'd say he's the one on the hot seat for sure.
And then my wild card is going to be Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, he's a very good coach. He's a young coach. He seems to be doing very well. He's a smart guy. However, Tua is in a contract year. He still hasn't gotten a contract extension. And the question is, like, if you're going to move on from Tua, which it seems like they're going to wait and see what Tua does before they pay him. I think if they wait and see and Tua doesn't perform, then that falls back on McDaniel. And just like the Bears, new quarterback, new coach. I don't think they bring in a new quarterback with McDaniel. I think they cut ties with him as well.
That's another interesting one too, because that one wasn't on my radar either. I feel like if they do extend Tua, then he's got some time. Wouldn't you think, Wayne? But if they don't, I can totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, he's tied to Tua, like the performancer, because he's been there for Tua's whole campaign. And if Tua hasn't earned a contract extension, that's his failure. So I think that if Tua doesn't earn that extension this year, they're looking at a new quarterback, and they're not going to start with McDaniel and a new quarterback. It's going to be a new coach and a new quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's another Bear situation like I was talking about, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Now, ways that you can replace players in the NFL, obviously we have the NFL draft, we have free agency. When it comes to free agency, obviously we have the UFL. We're seeing some of these UFL players get signed into the NFL for contracts. I did have a couple of players like, Garen Conley, who I think was a first-round pick originally for the NFL, but then he went and played in the UFL. Now he's with the Cowboys. A guy like Willie Harvey, Jacob Sailors, Jalen Redmond. These are guys who are probably, maybe they make the 53-man roster. Maybe they're practice squad guys. I'm not sure. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on signing UFL players. I don't think we've seen a UFL player come in and actually be a starter. At least, no, not since way back with the first round of the XFL. Tommy Maddox came into the Pittsburgh Steelers and played. But other than that, I don't think we've seen a UFL player come in and make any significant strides.
You're right. But I'm with, like, I brought up this topic because I'm really interested in this, Wayne. Like I was saying off, like that one time off air, I sent you a text and I was like, do you ever watch this? Because I was like, I've been randomly watching it. And I think I don't think it's meant to be completely entertaining. I think it's mainly just a developmental thing. And I think the NFL should totally, like, keep this and embrace this. And the one thing I like is that these players, they're getting a second chance. A lot of these players are like cast-off guys that may not have made it in the NFL, but hey, they might have started working harder, training harder, whatever the circumstances may be, and they're trying to fight their way back in the NFL. And so this gives them a way of other teams to check them out. So I thought it's really cool that there's like all these teams that are giving these players a shot. They might, like you said, they might not break the roster, but they're giving them a shot in camp. They're going to see what they can do. I think it's really cool. The one guy that really stood out for me, Wayne, is because I actually watched some of the games, was this kicker, Jake Bates. I forget his percentage, but his percentage was like really, really good. And I was just like, this guy's definitely going to get picked up by the NFL because the whole new kicking thing, like, I feel like the NFL's got radars for that now. So that was the one guy that really stood out to me.
Yeah, and that makes sense because especially with the new kicking rule in the NFL, a lot of these kickers are learning how to adjust to these rules. And if you bring in a guy from the UFL, they already have this rule there. So it's like these guys are used to kicking in this situation. So I think that's a good way. And it does segue into like what you were saying, almost like the NFL purchasing the UFL and using it as a developmental league or a minor league. And I think that they can make it even more profitable by slapping the shield on it and attaching it as part of the NFL brand, because now it's an NFL subsidized league, but also now you can extend your draft from 7 rounds to 15 or 20 rounds. And some of those late round picks, they're going to start off in the UFL trying to work their way up to the big club, you know, like a AAA team. Right. And so it's like, oh, I'm a Patriots fan. I can go watch, you know, the New England Sabertooths, you know, and I can see the guy that they drafted in the 16th round as their quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. I wouldn't even have thought of that. Like, that's taking it way far. And like, do you think that's what, yeah, like that would totally make it more profitable. Yeah. So, but there's other reasons why I like the UFL, Wayne. Like I was saying, it's like a developmental league, right? So besides the players, they're also doing like the rule changes, like how we were just talking about the new kickoff rule. They adopted this from the UFL. And I feel like they can use this league to do that with other rules, test them out, and then if they think they're good enough, to bring them in the NFL. Because me and you are always about the game needs to change and be more innovative. This is the perfect way to do that.
No, exactly. Just like Major League Baseball had the pitch clock start in the minor leagues and then it kind of see how it did, and then it worked its way up into the major leagues. And I'd love to see automated strike zone. You can either start in the minor leagues or you can just start in the major leagues because we need it now. But I do like that idea of using it as a developmental league, not just for the players. That's what I was thinking, but also for technology, for referees, for announcers. I think you had said in your text to me, you know, everything. Like just basically you have people that you want to develop. They start off in the UFL, they work their way up to the NFL. I like the idea. I think it makes sense for both sides. But will The Rock and Vince McMahon, you know, sell to, you know, Roger Goodell?
I don't know if anybody wants anything to do with Vince McMahon anymore. Maybe The Rock. Everybody loves The Rock, Wayne. But the last thing that's really cool that I like about this is, like I was saying, the broadcast. I don't know if you watch these UFL games, but they show different things that the NFL broadcast don't show. Like they show the offensive coordinator calling in the play to the quarterback. Then they show the quarterback relaying it to the team. And then sometimes when they have a really good play, let's say a guy scores a touchdown, right on the sideline, they interview him like right after the play, like, hey, how did that feel? Da, 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 da. I think some of those kind of things are kind of cool, and it would change the game in different ways and make it more entertaining. And that's another way they could use this league.
Well, I also think that because if you're going to use it as a player developmental league, then you have to assign a portion of the NFL salary cap to developmental. Like it's almost like you'd have your salary cap, but then you have a certain amount of money set aside for developmental players. You know what I mean? So let's say, and what's great too for the NFL, look at a team like Chicago with Justin Fields, right? They didn't really want to give up on him, but they had a choice to make, right? So maybe they go and get Caleb Williams. They send Justin Fields to the Chicago Stampeders, right? And he still gets to work on his game down there, but his salary is still on the NFL books. But it's, you know, it's like they would have like a developmental portion of their salary cap that would be set aside for that.
Yeah, it'd be like sort of like a minor league, but they can just call it a developmental league because it's not really a minor league, you know, but it's sort of the same thing. They're doing things to develop players and rules and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as we're talking about setting aside, you know, salary cap for one thing versus another, obviously the NFL has a salary cap, and with these quarterbacks signing humongous contracts, we're talking about some of the top paid quarterbacks in the league. There is some talk about having a quarterback salary cap separate from the regular salary cap. And we'll touch on that in just a second. So let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about here with some of the top paid quarterbacks, starting with Joe Burrow at $55 million. He's the highest paid quarterback in the league. I was looking at this, and actually I have here Patrick Mahomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's the 9th highest paid quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he's tied for 9th with Kirk Cousins. Yeah, dude, they're getting a deal. When I was looking at this list, Wayne, I was like, man, Kansas City got him locked up for a long time. They got him cheap.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are on some of these quarterbacks, because if I look at, I'll go through this list. We got Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen. When I'm looking at this list, I mean, some of the guys who when I'm looking at it, they don't fit. Like I wouldn't give them these contracts. They got them, good for them. But Jalen Hurts, to me, I don't think belongs on this list. And I don't think Justin Herbert belongs on this list. I think Lamar Jackson has earned the payday. I do think Jared Goff, the last 2 seasons, has been the best quarterback in the NFL. So those guys I have no problem with. But for me, Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts just seem out of place being ahead of Mahomes.
I would agree with you in that, Wayne. When I was looking at this list, I think some of the players that stood out to me is definitely Herbert. I don't think he should be 4th highest quarterback. Definitely not. Maybe 10th or 11th. The other guy I was thinking about is Kyler Murray. He really hasn't shown anything since he's gotten his contract. He bitched and complained about he wanted his contract, and then then the Arizona complained that he was playing too many video games and all that drama. So, and he really hasn't shown anything to that. And so those are the two that out to me that I don't think they should be that high on the list.
Right. And I understand, just when you extend a guy, you're just going to end up paying him. The highest paid quarterback is always going to be the next quarterback to get paid. You know, Patrick Mahomes' deal is actually pretty good for him and for the team. I think it's essentially just guaranteed every year at the start of training camp. So they could end it at any time and they're not on the hook for the rest of the contract. So it's a pretty sweet deal for both sides.
Definitely. And he's been like Brady. He's taking different ways of maneuvering his money so they can get players. He's also done that. So yeah, they got a good one with that guy, Dan.
So let me ask you about the whole salary cap thing, where they're talking about having a separate salary cap just for quarterbacks. So you'll have your salary cap and then you'll have your quarterback cap. I'm curious to get your thought. To me, I'm guessing that would be all your quarterbacks. So each team would have, let's say, $70 million for their quarterback room. And you can either give a guy 50 and then 10 and 10, or you can split it up evenly. However you want to use it, it's your salary for your quarterbacks. I think it's the dumbest idea ever. I'm not curious what your thoughts are here on the quarterback salary cap being separate from the regular salary cap.
Well, shout out to Man Hour NFL Talk, because Wayne talked about this with him last week. And before they even talked about it, I had thought about this for our topic. So I was really glad that you and him discussed it. So I already kind of know your opinion on it and that you don't like it. Me, I kind of have mixed emotions about it, because the way that these numbers are going, Wayne, the top guy's getting $55 million. At some point, these quarterbacks are going to be making like $70 million a year, ridiculous amount of money, and they're going to end up taking a huge percentage of the cap anyway. So I don't think they should have their own cap, but I think that a certain percentage of the cap should be dedicated to that position. So,
and again, another shout out to Man Hour. I was on the show, like you mentioned. You were just on the show recording. You're going to be on the show tomorrow, is it?
Yes, tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, we love those guys, Man Hour, Buck. They do a great job. Buck is very easy to argue with, so it's fun to go on the show and argue with him. I do want to say, though, and I'll reiterate the point that I made on his show. So the salary cap is there to limit the spending per team or keep it even, right? And teams can pay quarterbacks anything they want. They can pay quarterbacks $10 million or they can pay them $200 million. It's up to them what they want to allocate out of their cap for the quarterback position. To separate quarterbacks from the rest of the team, to me, is just like owners saying, please protect us from ourselves. If we don't have this, we're just going to keep spending. We'll stop spending. It's so stupid. Like all you have to do is stop spending, and then it won't keep going up.
Correct. But they don't want to do that because they know they want to keep spending money. They want this league to keep building money. So I don't know, Wayne. I don't think they're going to do this like anytime soon, but I think it's something that might be on the horizon.
Is there anything more childish? It would be like me going to my wife and saying, can you please put a limit on how much I spend on golf this month? Can you please do that for me? Because I feel like I'm spending too much and I need you to put a limit on it. I can put my own limit on it. Like, how non-grown up do you have to be to have somebody else tell you how much you can spend?
No, I agree with you. You're making me laugh because I didn't even think of this point. But yeah, it's like they can't control their money. So they're just like, please, somebody help me control my spending. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, let's make a rule so that I can't go over that.
And also, I think it's also so they could save money. So like we don't have to keep paying these guys these ridiculous amounts of money. So yeah, it's both sides.
Yeah. And again, it's like you can say, well, listen, if I don't pay my guy the 70 million, then he's going to go to another team who will. Well, then let them take the cap hit. That's a good thing for you. You just freed up $70 million. Like, it's so like, I don't want to lose the guy, but I don't want to pay him. So if there was a way I could tell him, I'm not allowed to pay you. I wish I could, but there's a rule that I can't, that I put in place.
You know what I always say, Wayne, these guys are oligarchs. You know, they do what they want. And this is another way of them getting what they want.
Yeah, I guess so. And speaking of these salaries and new salaries that are about to come, obviously there's some quarterback extensions that haven't happened yet. And we can talk about them. We've talked about them a little bit, but let's start with Dak Prescott. Is he going to get a contract extension, or is Jerry Jones really going to make him play it out? Because I don't think Jerry Jones wants to franchise him next year either. So I think, is this Dak's last year in Dallas?
Wayne, I think it could be. And I think he has a clause in his contract that he can't get franchised tagged again. I think he set that up with his last contract. And I was reading that the only way that they're going to save money next year to sign all the other players that they need to sign is that they need to get a contract extension done. So where's the cap hit on the books? And so I don't understand what Jerry Jones is doing. So it's like, if he's going to wait it out, he's going to wait till the end of next year to try to sign him and everybody else. That makes no sense.
No, it's silly. And you know, it's funny, like you mentioned, like getting other guys signed. I understand why that's not Dak's problem, or it's not the quarterback's problem. Their job is to take care of themselves. I saw a great interview on another podcast called Games with Names. It's Julian Edelman's podcast, and he'll have different Patriots and so on come on and talk with him. And he had Ty Law on, and Ty Law told a story about when he was going through contract negotiations that Bill Belichick, I think, told him, like, hey, if you don't take less money, we're going to have to cut your buddy who's on the team. And he said, well, go ahead and cut my buddy. I'll let him know. I'll be like, hey, I'll holler at you. But like, it's my money. I'm not going to give up my money for him. And so that's how these guys got to treat it. It's their money.
That's ruthless. No, I see that. They got to get what they can get, man. You know?
Now, how about Tua? Because Tua is an interesting thing because he's still kind of on his rookie deal. I think he's on that 5th year option right now. But I think teams are concerned, or the Dolphins at least are concerned, with his health and the concussions. I think performance-wise, I feel like he's done well enough to earn an extension. I guess maybe the question is not a $60 million extension. So then it's like, what kind of extension should he get?
And I'm glad that you brought that up. Like you said, I think he's done enough when he's healthy, when he's played, to earn a contract. But it's like you said, the concussions is a big deal. And also, it's like you said, also that they don't know where in this pecking order of paying quarterbacks, where he lands. I'm not totally sure where that is either. I don't think, but I'm with you. I don't think he should be the top paid quarterback like they keep doing and keep paying these guys, whoever's the top money, that's what they get. I've never believed in that, but that's just how it goes. And I think he's really talented. I think the guy has like one of the best, he's got the best accuracy, and he's got like the most anticipation with the ball. And that alone, I think, is deserving of this contract. And I think I've been reading a lot that they are trying to come to a middle ground, and he probably thinks he deserves an amount. They think he deserves this. So I feel like at some point, probably before the season, he's probably going to get his deal.
Yeah, I guess he might. I always wonder how I would negotiate these contracts if I'm the general manager, because the Dolphins are a little bit in a tough spot. They're built to win now with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and, Devin Achane, and they went out and they got more speed in the draft, and they're signing guys. I have them winning the AFC East as we did our schedule predictions. So they're a team that's built to win now. They can't afford to get a rookie quarterback next year. Like, it's just then you're starting all over again from scratch. McDaniel's out. Now you got to trade Hill. You got to trade Waddle. And you're basically just starting all over again from scratch. I don't think they want to do that. So in a way, I feel like Tua has them over a barrel a little bit. Unless, again, Dak becomes a free agent. And they might say, well, you want 60 million. Dak wants 60 million. We'd rather give it to Dak.
That's a good scenario. I wouldn't have thought of that. I think, like you said, if he stays there, like you said, they have all these concerns and they don't know where he should get paid. But like you said, he does hold them over a barrel because they really haven't had a quarterback of his talent since Dan Marino. Like, I don't know if you would agree with that, but that's kind of what I think. And it's like, why would you let this guy go when he's like the best thing you've had? And this is what you've been looking for all this time. And granted, you don't got to pay him the top money, but you can pay him good money for him to stay. And that's why I think that they're going to pay him.
Right. And like I said, if I'm the GM, I'm thinking in that $40 million range. That feels comfortable to me, especially since Mahomes is getting 45. So that's kind of how I would use it as a negotiating ploy. When they come in and they say, well, Joe Burrow is getting 55, so I want 58. I say, yeah, well, Patrick Mahomes is getting 45, so you should get 41.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what's been going on, Wayne, is everything that I've been reading is that they're in negotiations. So they haven't figured out that number yet.
And then the last quarterback I have in here is Matt Stafford. This is a guy, honestly, I'm surprised that he's even talking about an extension at this point. Isn't he like 37 or 36? I mean, he's up there. And I understand he's not Tom Brady. He's not 45. But this is a guy who's had injuries throughout his career. At this age, with the injuries that he's had, and especially like shoulder injuries, throwing shoulder injuries, this is a guy who I feel like is at the end of his career. Like, this should be his last season. I thought last year he should have retired.
You know what? I'd have to agree with you on that. And I think that's partly why he's trying to get a deal, because I think he's trying to get like that last deal before he's done, And from what I read, he's just trying to get more guaranteed money for the next 2 years. Basically, he wants this, so they give him more commitment. So he's not going to dump him like you were saying, because they could. And I think if he gets his contract, then he knows, well, hey, maybe they might not dump me right away, and I still can live out my 2 years and get paid pretty decently.
If only he could do what his wife did, and he can go maybe go sleep with another team and be like, hey, I'm just sleeping with this team. Unless you start paying me.
God, can you believe that, Wayne? I couldn't believe that when I heard that. I was like, wow, man, way to air out your dirty laundry. I don't believe in that shit.
I totally am on her side, though, actually, knowing the story, because basically what it was is, if you follow the whole story, we're talking about Matt Stafford and his wife, and she had come out in a podcast and said that, she was sleeping with the backup quarterback to get him to go out steady with her. And so it sounds bad initially, but when you remember that Matt Stafford at Georgia was what was it called? The cock of the walk, right? Like, he was the guy.
Yeah, he was the guy.
He was the guy. He could have every single incoming freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior who was a 9 or better were his, and he started seeing his wife, not dating, but seeing her, and was like, listen, I don't really want to make anything exclusive because I'm getting all this, nice stuff going on. And so she's like, all right, fine. Well, then I'm just going to date the backup quarterback. And then his hand was forced. He was like, no, I want to date you exclusively. So that's how she got him to commit. If she hadn't done that, then he still would have been sleeping with all these women while he was seeing her. So in a way, I kind of have to respect her move.
Yeah, I don't know the whole story. I'm glad you told me that part. I didn't know that part. But yeah, I can see both sides. Like, well, I can see what she did, but did she have to air it out on a podcast to the whole world? Like, come on, man.
Well, I think
I know you want some entertainment out there, but there's limits.
Yeah, I think that she thought it was funny. And I think that, when put in the right light, it is kind of funny that she was like, hey, he didn't want to settle down. So I was like, well, then I'm just going to hook up with this guy. And he's like, okay, I'll settle down, and it's like funny. That's a funny, let's laugh at that story. But I think some people took it and almost like vilified her for that. And I understand what she's doing. If she didn't do that, she just would have been one of 25 women. So by doing what she did, she made herself the only one.
True. Good perspective.
All right. So this is a topic that you sent me that I actually was fascinated by this topic. I'm so interested to talk about this topic. The idea that they've already passed this rule where you're able now to start buying stock on a player. So like the player that they're using for the example here is Baron Browning. So Baron Browning, they're going to offer 100,000 shares of Baron Browning at $10 a share. And what's going to happen is if you buy those shares, you're going to receive dividends every year of his salary. So whatever his salary is. Right now he's getting paid $3 million a year. But if he signs a $100 million contract paying him $20 million a year, you're going to get a portion of that $20 million. Now the portion is 1% is how much he's putting into the dividend pool. So in theory, if there's 100,000 shares, 1% of $3 million is $30,000. There's 100,000 shares, so that's 30 cents per share, a dividend that you're getting every year. But it's only $10 a share. So if you buy 10 shares, you're getting $3, right? I mean, so the more shares you buy, the more you're getting. A guy signs a $20 million a year contract. Well, now 200,000. It's $2 a share for every share that you own. And what they want to do, if I'm not confusing you, so it's a confusing topic, so I'll end it with this. You can start investing in some of these players while they're still in college. So you can get like a Marvin Harrison Jr. for $10 a share. Then when he becomes a big superstar, you're getting huge dividends on that $10 a share.
So when I thought of this topic, Wayne, I didn't realize it was going to pique your interest so well. But when it was brought to me, this idea of players getting invested in their salary, I thought like it really interested me because I was like, man, everything has changed so much over the years, going from no gambling to now it's gambling's everywhere, and now you can invest into a player. Crazy, man. Like I'm thinking about doing it just to see, like, just to give it a go, just to like maybe get, like you said, get 30 cents or $3 or whatever, just to participate. And when I was researching this, like you said, they're going to get other players. Like I looked up the website and they're trying to get, like, they're going to have, like you said, college players, other sport players. I'm just curious now of who these players are going to be.
Yeah, and it seems like a great idea. And it also depends, too, on how these players decide to structure the dividends, right? So in his case, he's doing 1% of his salary every year goes into the dividend pool. Well, if a player says, I'm going to put 5% of my salary into the dividend pool, well, that makes him a more expensive stock, And so he might have to pay more for him, but you're getting a bigger dividend as well. And that's the other thing that's going to happen with these stocks and these athletes is you buy this guy Browning, you buy his stock at $10 a share. If it looks like he's going to get a $100 million contract, you can probably sell those shares for $12 a share or $14 a share because people are going to get larger dividends with his new contract. So it's a lot of that. It's just like real stocks. It's like the real stock market, but with players. And I'm really interested to see where it goes. I like the idea. In his case, he gets 80% of his initial public offering. So an initial public offering or an IPO, if you guys have heard that, means that the first time his stock is sold. So they sell 100,000 shares at $10 a piece. That's the initial public offering. He's going to get 80% of that. So that's $800,000. So this means even he's only giving away 30,000 this year and he got 800, right? So even if he signs a $20 million deal per year, that's still 4 years of his salary at $20 million a year before he actually is losing money on this deal. So in a way, he's gambling on himself with the IPO. But where he's going to end up losing is if he is going to sign that kind of money, his stock price goes up. He doesn't get any portion of that. So then I start wondering, do players start buying their own shares? It's a really tricky thing, but it's interesting and fascinating.
Kind of sounds like the slippery slope with gambling. So if that does happen, like that scenario you just said, NFL's probably going to have to figure something out to regulate it, or however they do it.
Well, it's going to be regulated not by the NFL, but by the SEC. So that's the federal governing body that oversees stocks and trades and mutual funds and things like that. So they're going to oversee all this trading. It's just going to be interesting because it is gambling. And that's exactly what the stock market is in general, right? If you buy Apple stock, you're gambling that it's going to go up, but it might not. Same thing with these guys. You're investing, hoping that they get a big salary someday, but they might not. And the more sure thing they are, probably the more expensive their stock is going to be. Just like real stocks, the better the stock is, the more expensive it is. So it's a really, really cool idea. It sounds like the players are going to make some decent money at it. And it allows fans to have an investment kind of in the player, in the sense almost like you're not going to be mad if your team signs a guy for $50 million a year, like, oh, son of a B, they wasted that money. If you've got stock in him, you're like, yeah, sign him to $50 million a year because you're going to get a portion of that.
I just think the whole thing is fascinating, Wayne. It's kind of like the whole NFTs, how just all of a sudden now these days we're putting a price on things. And so now it's like so far into that now it's like, oh, we can invest in this player. And a lot of this, the whole part of this got part on my radar is because the guy that's doing it is a Denver Bronco. And it's just, we didn't mention that before, and it's just crazy that this is a thing now. And like I was saying, I'm really curious the other players that are going to risk, not necessarily risk, but they are going to give up some of their salary to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious how it works when the player gets released or retires or gets injured. Then does your stock just end, or do you get your money back? Is it more like a bond, I guess? So like stocks and bonds are a little bit different. Bonds are more like you buy the bond, you receive dividends every year from your bond, and then at the end you get your money back. You know what I mean? Because basically what a bond is a company taking a loan and you're paying their loan. And not to go too deep into it, but basically like a government bond, $100 government bond is I'm giving $100 to the US government, right? And they're going to pay me interest every year for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And that interest might be $2 or $3 per $100 bond. And then at the end of that loan, the 10-year term, I get my $100 back. So I've been getting those dividends and I get my money back. So I want to know if the players are going to be like that. If it's like I'm paying $10 for his shares, but then when he gets injured or he retires, I get a refund for my $10. Where it gets tricky is like, let's say I sell that $10 stock for $16 because he's going to sign a big contract. The player who holds that stock at the end of his career is only getting back 10, even though they paid 16 for the stock, because you will only get back what you invested at the initial public offering, not what it sold for in the secondary market.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. I mean, like, it's just, like I said, I'm really curious to see who else is going to do it. I want to curious to see which college players are going to do this, because they get making so much money now. Like, you're all part of the NIL. They could be part of this too.
Well, that's what I'm curious about, is if you sign these guys in college, if it's just their NFL contracts that you're going to get a portion of, or if you will get a portion of their NILs. And if you do get a portion of their NILs, then they have to report that money publicly because they're paying a dividend on it. So the SEC will regulate that. They aren't going to be allowed to keep any earnings under the table.
Huh. Crazy times, Wayne. Crazy times.
Yeah, definitely very, very interesting to me. Again, as somebody who works in the industry, it's very interesting. So let's see here. So they've made some changes to the Comeback Player of the Year award. And before it was just like, if you played better this year than you did last year, then you can win the award. And it doesn't matter why you didn't play well last year. Maybe you were sitting at home. Maybe you were on the bench. Doesn't matter. Last year you didn't play well. This year you did play well. You win Comeback Player of the Year. It sounds like they're making a change to it now where it has to be injury related. Like you didn't play last year or you had limited playing time last year because of an injury. And then you came, that's the true comeback, not like, Joe Flacco, who was like, I took a year off and I got Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah, they basically they don't want to give the award to a guy that just sucked and then had a good year. Yeah, you're right. It has to be like they were injured. There was some sort of thing that happened. Or they didn't play and they came back, had a decent year, and that's why they want to win the award. I feel like this is all because of Devin Hamlin. Like he died on the field, so and he didn't get the award. Joe Flacco did, and I'm pretty sure this is probably why this is a thing.
Well, again, Joe Flacco more so than DeMar Hamlin, because Flacco didn't do anything last year, and now he's a starter and he puts up these yards. Excuse me. Whereas Hamlin, he didn't really do anything to win it this year either. Like he very limited playing time. He's kind of like a special teams guy who had like 5 tackles or something. So it's an amazing story, but it's not a Comeback Player of the Year. The Comeback Player of the Year should still be based on statistics, but I do like the idea that it's, a jump in statistics that isn't due to bad statistics.
Right. But this is basically kind of how it is in the NBA in a way, because in the NBA, like the Rookie of the Year award, they have a thing where, let's say a guy gets injured in his first year, he still qualifies to be the Rookie of the Year. next year. So it's kind of like the same kind of thing, but it's different.
Well, we'll call that the Blake Griffin rule, because that's the only time I remember it really happening was when Blake Griffin got drafted and he had this devastating knee injury in college or in the preseason or something. So he actually played 0 NBA games his first year. So technically, yeah, his rookie year was that second season. Some people had an issue with that, but it's still his first year playing. Like, he sat out all last year. It isn't like he played in Europe last year for 50 games and then came and played over here. He missed the entire season. So I didn't really have a problem with that.
I was just trying to like compare sort of that same instance that the guy was hurt, so he still qualifies. So that's what the NFL wants. They don't want guys to just have a bad year and have a good year. They want the guy to actually something happen to him and he comes back and he plays and he does well. So I'm just going to be interested in like who are the candidates going to be now for this. It's like, is it going to be like just some random like offensive lineman who got hurt and came back and had a good year? Like it's going to be players you don't even think about, I bet.
Oh no, it's going to be your best buddy in New York.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. He's going to be the comeback player of the year this year.
I thought you said they were going to have a terrible year, Wayne. You said they were going to go like 2-15.
As long as he plays more than 3 snaps, he's going to be the comeback player of the year.
Right. You're probably right. I don't doubt with you on that one.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about some renovations. We talked about renovations to the rules. How about some renovations to stadiums? The cities of Jacksonville and Carolina approved renovations for their stadiums, workout facilities, whatever, stadium upgrades and all that jazz. Kansas City obviously shot down theirs. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about it, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on cities financing upgrades to the stadium. Like, if you're pro that, if you're, nay that, like, what's your thought on the city paying for these things, taxes paying for these things?
Well, I'm kind of have mixed emotions because I feel like in one way, these owners are so rich, they should be able to pay for this shit themselves. They have enough money, maybe sell your yacht and then you can afford all this stuff. And instead of making the people pay for it. But then on the other hand, the Broncos wouldn't have our stadium that we do now if the taxpayers didn't put in some of the money. Like, I like our stadium, and at some point I want another one. So I kind of see how that point of view of it, that they want some part of the money from the pool, but I feel like it should be more even. I feel like, or not even, but I feel like the billionaire owner needs to pay the majority, and then maybe the taxpayers pay a small percentage because they invest in the team also in a way. So I just don't think, like, we were looking at the Carolina Panthers. We were talking about that a few episodes ago, that Tepper is one of the richest owners in the league, and he's still asking for $650 million to renovate this stuff. It's like, come on, man! You're really going to make the taxpayers pay that much? You can't, like, it can't be less than that. It's just so greedy.
Well, again, I think it depends on a couple of things. One is, does the owner own the stadium or does the city? Because if the city built the stadium, the city owns the stadium, then I kind of feel like it's up to them to make the renovations. It's their property. He's just renting it. And so just like if you rented a property and the window breaks, the landlord has to fix it. So I think the city has to pay for the renovations in those situations. But let's say it's not. Let's say it's owner owned. The owner owns the stadium. Even then, I think that, taxpayers should have to foot a portion of the bill because, let's be honest, the bar down the road makes more money during football season. The hotel down the road makes more money during football season. Everybody makes more money. They all pay taxes on that money that they're making. So what better to use that tax money for than the stadium that's helping them make that money?
Right. Totally agree. And I didn't even think about that point of, I'm not even totally sure if David Tepper does own the stadium or if he's leasing it. Because I know with the Broncos, I know that we have a deal with the city. I'm not totally sure if it's a lease, but we have a deal for like 10 years that we can't move, or they have to buy out the remaining 10 years of revenue or something like that. And that's partly why the Walton Penn Group aren't doing the stadium right now, because they don't want to pay that extreme amount of money, even though they could. They're not going to. So they're going to wait out these 10 years. So maybe it's one of those things, like you said, that they have leases with the city, and that's why the city are putting up the money.
Yeah. And I don't really want to get started on the Walton family in general, because for those who don't know, the Walton family are the descendants of Sam Walton, the person who created Walmart. And so Walmart, when Sam Walton owned it, was a great place to work. It was like you went there, you got great benefits, full time, you got dental, medical, you got all kinds of great benefits there. And Sam Walton was all about the workers. He was like, the workers are the ones, this company is on their backs, not mine. So I'm going to take care of the workers. You take care of them, they'll take care of you. Then he died, and his shitty little douchebag kids inherited the company, cut salaries, everyone went to part time, cut benefits, and they opened 7,000 more Walmarts across the world so that they could be quadrillionaires, and it's just, it makes me sick because it's totally what's wrong with the world and greed is his kids. His kids are the face of what's wrong.
Well, I did not know that, Wayne, and one of his kids owns my team, so sorry for us, I guess.
Well, I guess where they got their money.
Yes, Walmart.
All right, now we have the final thing I see here on the docket. Obviously, we have the NFL ticket lawsuit. The Sunday ticket thing came down. It got tripled damages, so it's $14 billion that has to be paid out. And I want to make sure I have this right. So basically 2.4 million residences and 48,000 businesses who had Sunday ticket between 2011 and 2022. I'm not sure I understand if they had to pay more money for Sunday ticket to see the out of market games versus I didn't fully understand the lawsuit.
Yeah, so basically the lawsuit was, like you said, the bars and all that, they thought they were getting paid. They were getting charged more than they should have paid. And I think the whole reason this came to be a thing, Wayne, is last year when the deal was going down for Sunday ticket, when they were trying to find a new partner to stream it, I think it was Apple. Apple was one of the companies that were like, hey, we really want to buy this, but we want it to be able, like, fans to be able to just do a la carte. And let's just say I want to watch the Broncos. I should be able to pay just for the Broncos, not for all Sunday ticket. And I think that's kind of how this came to a head, is that happened. It kind of got put on the radar of these people who filed this lawsuit, and they realized the NFL was charging way too much because they, like you said, they were making people pay for the out-of-market games, so you had to buy the whole package. You couldn't just buy your team, and that's why all these bars are like, hey, I only want the Broncos games, but I'm getting charged for all this other stuff, and I shouldn't be charged. And that's why the NFL is in a lot of trouble, and I know they're going to appeal it. But what's really cool, Wayne, is I bought a Sunday ticket for like the last 10 years. So if this actually goes through and they don't win the lawsuit or the appeal, I'm winning some money.
Well, not to root against you, but just based on the merits of this case, I kind of am rooting for the NFL in this, only because, you know what? Sometimes I would like to go to the store and just get the red crayon. And I'm not going to sue them because I have to buy 12 or 24 or 64 to get the red. I didn't want the blue or the white or the black or the green. I just wanted red. I'm going to sue them because I only wanted the red. That's stupid. It comes as a 64 pack. Guess what? The NFL Sunday ticket comes as a 32 pack. Deal with it.
And I'm with you on that, Wayne. I've always been the type that I know what I was signing up for. I know I was paying for all the games. I know I wasn't going to watch all the games, but I had my choice of watch whatever I wanted. So I knew what I was paying. And so I know, like, I could have said no. I could have been like, no, it's too expensive and not paid, but I did because I want to watch football. So like you said, like, I was going to do it no matter what. So if people want to complain and me get some money out of it, good deal.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, I understand that probably most people felt like they understood what they were signing up for. They said, hey, I'm signing up to watch all the games, or, if I'm a Patriots fan and I live in California, I have to get Sunday ticket to watch the Patriots, but I'm only going to watch the Patriots, but whatever. I understand it. It costs what it costs. That's what it costs, So I think that most people feel that way. What I'm thinking happened is, like you said, with the whole Apple thing, somebody said, hang on a second. So you're saying that they could have just sold me my team? They didn't have to sell it as a 32 pack? And that's when this whole thing came up. But come on. It's like you knew what the deal was. We all knew what the deal was.
It's like Ross Tucker. He's one of my favorite guys. I told you about him, Wayne. He even said, like, his line was, they didn't put a gun to your head. You paid for it. You decided to do it. You didn't, you forcefully gave your money to the NFL. So it's like, that's your fault, and now you're going to come back and be like, I want my money back. Like, come on.
Again, just like the Waltons are crappy people, there's crappy people throughout the entire world, and if there's a chance to grab some money by screwing over somebody, people will do it. And so I think that that's kind of what's happening here. That's what the Waltons did. That's kind of what people are doing here with this lawsuit. And I see a lot of these lawsuits where I'll get emails where it'll be like, did you buy a Volkswagen in the last 30 years? And I'll be like, yeah. And they're like, well, you might be entitled to some money. Like what, like $6? You know what? And what am I entitled for? Because they marketed their color as white instead of cream. And so people were deceived because I had a white one and it should have been called cream. I don't know. It's stupid.
Well, they're saying when what I read, I could get up to $2,000 depending on the years that I paid for it. Yeah, about $2,000. That's I'm like I would see like $3, $30, whatever. I'm not even gonna worry about that. But 2,000, I'll take it.
I don't know, I'm against it. So
Of course you are. Of course you are. Wait.
So again, anyways, that's how I feel about the NFL. That's how Mark and I both feel about the NFL. We feel a little bit differently on this issue, but we have had a great show today. It was an hour long. If you were watching on Facebook, which nobody is, please tell your friends to follow us on Facebook so we can get back onto Facebook and you can see the live stream. I know you're probably listening to it on Spotify. Thank you, but watch the live stream or follow us on Facebook.
Yes, watch the live stream on Twitter, on YouTube. You can still catch us there. Please go on Facebook. All of our loyal followers, Man Hour, and all your peeps out there, please go to our site and give us a follow. Get us back up to Facebook and their stupid rules and let us back on. We really appreciate all the support. And like I said at the beginning of the show, if anybody wants to give us a comment, follow, anything, we're on all the social media, NFL Experts Pod. You can find us anywhere. Send us a comment or on Gmail, NFLExpertsPod@gmail.com. We love anybody who could chime in with new topics. We're always looking to interact with fans. We love it.
And if you follow us and you say, well, there's more content here than just videos, and I only wanted to follow you guys for the videos, then please feel free to sue us.
Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Mark.